So by a show of hands, I want to ask you, has anybody never had a bout of adversity in your life? Anybody never faced a hardship, a divorce, an illness, a loss of a dear one, a month where you couldn't pay your bills? You've never had that? You've never had any adversity? Well, I just wanted to know what planet you were from. Okay, so notice nobody's hands went up. Because life is full of things happening other than we thought were going to happen. So by a raise of hands, has anybody had your life turn out the way you thought it was going to turn out? Isn't that fascinating? And is that bad? Does that mean you're unhappy and miserable and you're going to because it didn't happen the way you thought it would? Does anybody recognize some of the blessings that have occurred in you not getting what you wanted?
Yeah.
It's like what?
You think you're going one path, you take a different path, you meet different people, you have different experiences, and that helps build you to where you're at.
And the building you part, tell me about that. Do everybody recognize the building you part? That life not giving us what we thought we wanted, sometimes we have to reach further or in a different direction and become something other than we were in order to have. Does anybody see that? So, life happens when we like it or not, and we all face an adversity, and we can either go down and stay down in a puddle of pity. I've done that. Has anybody done that? But we can get back up, right? I mean, that happens. But we can learn how to get back up faster. And we do that by accessing the spiritual quality within called resilience. So on your chair, there's a rubber band. And it's a wonderful example of what resilience is. So resilience, according to the dictionary, says it's the ability to recover quickly from illness, change, or misfortune. Did you shoot that at somebody? Okay, when I tell you what I wasn't going to tell you before, we can have a rubber band fight. So the ability to recover quickly, also the property of a material that enables it to resume its original shape or position after being bent, stretched, compressed, or it's elasticity. So flexibility, but it's even more than flexibility. So the rubber band stretches and it comes back. So life moves us, but when we come back, but what do you imagine we come back to when we're talking of the quality of spiritual resilience? What do we come back to? Because this woman here was really generous in sharing that sometimes you become something different, so you're not going to come back to that, because life will actually encourage us to change shape, like we shapeshift. But where there is a coming back to something.
I'd like to come back to being sort of peaceful.
Come back to peace. Yeah, that's great. Anything else? What do you come back to after a disturbance happens? Because life happens, right, and we get upset. Anybody not get upset when things didn't go according to plan? Okay, good.
Come back to the center.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like the moderation concept, whether it's really great or really bad, after a while you just kind of come back to
A sense of equanimity, tranquility. Yeah, that's good. So because life is about change, and Lao Tzu had a disciple, Chuang Tzu, and he said, the only thing constant in life is change. That's it. I mean, that's the only thing you can count on, is that things aren't going to stay the same. And of course, we don't like that. Why don't we like that?
Comfort zone.
Comfort zone. And what does that mean to you?
I have a disabled son, and he's like Sheldon. And I think everybody's got a little bit of Sheldon in them. Sheldon Cooper from Big Bang.
So how is that? Tell me more, because I don't watch that show.
Well, he's kind of autistic, and his routine is very helpful to, I think anybody is just comfortable in things that they're familiar.
Okay. So you just kind of keep wanting to bring things back to the way they were. So it's called arguing with reality, right? Yeah, that's a lot of fun. It's really useful too. Have you noticed how ineffective it is? So life happens when you're making other plans, and the mastery of a life is not to avoid circumstances shifting. It's really becoming competent in dealing with change on change terms. Like, what do I do now? How do I meet the situation with a quality of consciousness, or even moving into change from that place of peace and centeredness and equanimity? How can I engage in the moving parts and still be home? So what are some of the things you've learned so far? I think everybody's in this room fell down at least once and then stood back up again. So what have you learned about standing back up? What works for you to stand back up?
You learn something.
You learn
As
something.
long as you're open to learning from whatever it was.
Whatever it was. So if you go, this is here to teach me something. And so it's an attitude. So it's the meaning you put on it. So you could either be life tripped me up, or maybe life's trying to point me in a different direction. So that's a very powerful tool. Thank you. It's how am I going to interpret the circumstances that are occurring? Because the mind is a meaning-making machine, right? It loves to make things up. Everybody notice that? Make stuff up all the time. And I've shared this here before, but I'll share it again. It's a poem. It's, let's see how it goes. The siren sounded. The dishwasher broke. The siren broke the dishwasher. Right? Two different, non-related, because we know better, but somebody who might not would do that, right? And we often don't know any better, so we'll put things together, and then we're in the conclusion that the reason she looked at me that way is because she's mad at me, and she just had an upset stomach, right? So it's the resiliency of the human spirit, the willingness to get back up one more time then we fall down, that keeps us moving forward in our lives. There's a reason why we stand up again. What do you think that is? What is it for you? In spite of the tremendous amount of adversity each one of us faces, we keep going. Because everybody in this room kept going, otherwise you wouldn't be here, right? You're not laying on the floor someplace in a puddle of pity. Puddle of pity, I like that. So what keeps you going? Yeah.
Hope that it'll get better,
And what's better?
that your life will take a better direction than what you just left behind.
Yeah, so that there's an optimism that this is serving me somehow, even though it's stinky in here at the moment. What else keeps you going?
The will to live.
The will to keep moving, the will to live. Yeah. You know, isn't that why we all love the hero's journey? You know, the Odyssey and Star Wars and Bilbo, The Hobbit, right? What are some of your favorites? What are some of your favorite hero stories? I mean. And that's like one of the biggest genre that we pay attention to. The one that's overcoming adversity. Anything from fairy tales. Nobody in the room has a favorite? Harry Potter, yeah. That's a great one. Anybody ever see The King's Speech? Yes. Wasn't that great? That was great. And here this man is privileged. So, you know, sometimes you go, oh, poor me, my pile of pity is because was born on the wrong side of the tracks, or I was adopted and nobody loved me, or whatever the story is. But this man was born into privileged circumstances. And he had adversity, right? He was misused, maybe abused as a child, and developed a stutter, which in and of itself was challenging, but he was the second son. He wasn't that important. He wasn't born to be king until his brother abdicated, and now he was going to be king. And what was that, the first time they were going to do a radio? It was right at the beginning of radio, and he had to make a speech when England was going to get into the war. And his country is going to see him as representing them. And he has this horrible stutter. Well, what happened?
He worked his butt off and overcame it.
He worked his butt off. Did he want to? No, but he did it anyway, because there was something greater than himself that helped him keep going. And it was something greater than himself that is represented by him serving his country. But if you really look at it, there was something greater than who he thought he was waking up, that he needed to get bigger than his mind told him he was in order to do the deed that was given him to do. He had to become king. And he had to step into his own inner majesty and his commitment to serve and break through the limitations that his mind was telling him that he couldn't do it. And he did it, and he became a beloved king. Now, if he can do it, you can do it, right? Those kind of stories show us that we can do it. And life asks us to do it. I mean, raise your hand if you don't have something you're dealing with right now that has a little bit of friction around the edges. No more hands. I'm asking you easy questions today, so you don't have to raise your hand. And thank you all for participating. I like to have a conversation because you all bring something to the group that, makes this gathering something better than I could just do by myself. So thank you. So the other beautiful part about heroes' journeys is they show us what it means to be human. We often don't want to do it. We're often frightened. We often have moments where we want to run away. But if we look at the word human in English, hu is an ancient Sanskrit word that means God. And man is the package God lives in, the animal part of us. Or some have said man comes from the word manos, which means hand. So therefore we become the hand of God. This vehicle becomes an instrument of the divine, but it's also an animal. We live in an animal body. The human spirit lives in a human body that is of form and needs to live another day. And how many of you like to face the saber-toothed tiger? Me neither. So when something happens, what does the mind tell us? Comfort zone. What does the comfort zone yell?
What does the comfort zone yell?
What? Something's happening, pushing on your comfort zone, and I call them the mind monsters. What did they say? Don't open the door, right? Run. It's going to eat us. And so that's all okay, because you're human, and we do that. And then it's like we calm it down, and we look through the peephole, and go, there's no monster out there. It's okay, I can handle this. You open the door, you let it in. And somebody over here says, what if we actually welcome change as our friend, as something they're here to serve us? That based on, if you think about it, in the past, every adversity that you've had has brought you gifts. Have you ever thought about that? The blessings in what you thought were the unwelcomed. So if moving forward, if I'd like for tonight to be of service to you in any way, it might be that when something happens, after you go eek, you shift as quickly as possible to, oh boy, I wonder what's here for me. I wonder what life is bringing to me. I wonder what it is that I'm being asked to learn, or how this is going to serve my evolution. Because again, the mind is a meaning-making machine. So if I say when something happens, it's against me, then I'm not going to be as resourceful or access my resilience as quickly as if I put a different meaning on it, go, oh, what if there's something here for me, and life is bringing me something I can make good use of. Does that make sense? That simple shift, it's not easy. It's a very simple shift. It's not easy because however long you've been on the planet, you've been trained to go victim. Does anybody know what I mean by that? It's always like, who's to blame for this fix I'm in? And it's just the natural occurrence of the human conditioning. It's just the culture we grew up in. It's not good, bad, right, or wrong, but once we're aware of it, we can go victorious. And we can turn adversarial situations into blessings. And on your chair there was a card. On one side it says victim, and the other side it says victorious. That's for you to put in your wallet, so when you forget, you have a little pocket coach. And those of you who are online, if you want one of those cards, you can write to me, and I'll send you one. I've had people call me, can you send me 5 of those? I want to give them to my friends. So the cool things about something happening is like it's spiritual resilience is even more than just the generic resilience, I get sick, I'm better again. It actually, like what you said, we grow into something more. So imagine a fire roaring its way through a forest and it gets to a log. It actually consumes the log and becomes more than it was. It makes use of the circumstances that was blocking its way to grow itself into even more than it was before. And that is powerful to recognize that that could possibly be what's going on in our lives. So think of a time when something really, that your mind told you, like, this is dreadful, I don't know if I'm going to make it. So just really, you go ahead and do this with me. I'm going to call on you. And it's past. And here you are. And this part you may want to contribute, and you don't have to. What qualities of consciousness have you developed because you endured through whatever that was? What do you have access to more now than you did prior to? Or how do you see yourself differently in ways that you're grateful for? Yes?
Take a moment and not react. Don't panic, don't react, but take a moment and, I don't know what the word I'm looking for, observe, but don't go crazy.
So I'm going to paraphrase that. So I'm hearing you say you've learned how to stay calm and not go into crazy brain when something happens. Like you realize that that's a better way of engaging with things going awry. And that's a skill you've taught yourself because of things that happened in the past.
Because I've done it.
You've gone into crazy brain.
It happened in the past.
Yeah.
My son was taken to the hospital with an overdose.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so, but previous to that, not that bad. I've always reacted to the situation rather than, okay, you know.
So learning to stay calm.
Right.
How many of you would recognize that as a useful quality to access in this world, staying calm? Now I'm asked for a raise of hand, so it's almost everybody. One of the most essential abilities that any of us have is to stay calm, or else to calm ourselves down as quickly as possible. Beautiful, thank you. I saw another hand.
Yeah, I was going to say, I look at it as don't react. You got to take it in, but respond, because in response, you have choices. A reaction takes control of you. A response is your choice to that reaction. And I think the other thing that I've learned is compassion and empathy. Because if I've suffered this and I understand it deeply, I can reflect in others now. Mm-hmm. And it allows me to connect that way.
That's beautiful. So what this man's saying is that his own hardship has opened his heart to greater empathy and compassion for other people. And the experience of difficulty he went through has brought him to a place of deeper connection with just humanity in general. So are you more patient and kind as a result?
I think so.
In general? I mean, in general.
No, I grew up on the south side of Detroit, so there wasn't much patience or compassion.
Yeah, but the compassion and empathy and recognizing everybody's having a human experience, and I don't have to get upset that they're upset, and shift it to maybe they're having a hard time and opening your heart. I mean, do you see that that comes from living? We weren't born knowing how to do that. We teach ourselves that because that's a higher road to travel than continually being upset that the world is upsetting us. Because that becomes a never-ending cycle of going nowhere. I call it the hamster wheel of Hades. I saw a hand over here. Somebody else, yes?
Well, he took mine.
Oh,
Same thing
dear.
With the compassion, and just, it made me so much more compassionate, but I have another one.
Okay.
I've really come to just really own this too shall pass.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to just be a saying, but now it's just so meaningful. And it's like everything in my life that I thought was the end of the world, either it passed or it became the new normal, and I adjusted. And everything will, no matter how much it doesn't feel like it.
What a solid foundation to stand on in life, to know that no matter what, this will pass, or if it doesn't, I'm going to figure out how to make it work. I'm fine. Basically, you're fine. No matter what's going on in there, you're fine. That's beautiful. Yes, I saw another one.
I was just going to say, I think the thing that I'm still struggling with a lot is just recognizing how little control I have. And so many of the things that we want to fix or that I get upset about or react to they're just not in my control. And so then, professionals will talk to you about self-care, take care of yourself, which is true, but sometimes that, like I'm listening to this gentleman say he's become more altruistic, and sometimes I kind of feel selfish, but I feel like I've sort of discovered some joy in my life, just because it's like I so recognize this, as far as I know, this is the only life I've got. So I just really enjoy nature, I enjoy the people who I can be with. But it's hard sometimes, because at the same time, I have a lot of feelings like, oh, I should be doing more with this, but the direction I would want to put my energies has just been so fruitless.
So what I love, this is another beautiful lesson you're sharing with all of us, whether we have more lifetimes or not. That's not the topic of the conversation. This is the only one you have right now here that you're available to and conscious to. So you might as well decide how you're going to go through it. And what I'm hearing you're saying is that you're choosing to find the joy in your life and to stay away from, even though you really showed us a lot of what we all do is all the mental, I should do this, I should do that, but it doesn't make me happy, and landing in, well, what makes me joyful? Because I only have who knows how many seconds until I'm dead. Why not live in the joy of it? The joy of the blessing of this lifetime. And that comes from experience of choosing something other than the joy. Beautiful. And one last
I was
one.
going to say, that reminds me of just self-compassion. That's another way of reflecting it. But I find empathy the toughest of the two.
The toughest of the two?
You really have to be inside of what the other person is feeling and viewing.
But you're aware, at least at this point in your life, that that's a useful practice. So again, it doesn't matter how many times life knocks us down, standing up one more time, that's all we're required to do. And that standing up is what builds some of these muscles that we're going to call resilience and calm and openness and I'm okay and equanimity and compassion. Every time we stand up, we get to build more of the blessing of our humanity. We mature into our spiritual nature when we choose to stand up with the attitude of being a victor. I'm victorious, not that I'm, stand up, but I'm still really laying down in the pity puddle. But I stand up as a winner. I mean, I've had some adversities, and I can count on myself. I know I'm going to be there for myself. I'm my best friend. I didn't know that when I was younger. I didn't know that until I went through some things. And to live, going through whatever hardship that I've been through, and I just want to say I'm human also just like all of you, there's a gratitude no matter how hard it was, because what I stand in now as a result was worth every moment that I was in the pity puddle and stood up again and stood up again and stood up again. Psychological studies have shown people who are resilient in the face of adversity have something in common. What we have, I'm going to say we. What we have in common is that we are able to give positive meaning to every experience we've been through. Makes sense, right? So the past is just the past. All we can ever really do with the past is interpret it in a way that serves us. And that interpretation, the story we put on, will really nourish us and hold us upright so we can face what's next with equanimity, centeredness, peace, determination, knowing that I got me. No matter what, falls apart, falls away, I got me. Does everybody know what that feels like? Yeah. That's the spiritual warrior. You know, whatever it is, you're going to make it to the end. And in the hero's journey, is it ever a straight line? No. Now there would be no story, right? So like that woman says, we have no control over events. Dishwashers break, sirens sound, life happens. What are we going to do about it? See, that's the key to everything. It's like, we have no control over circumstances. And we have influence, of course we do, but that's a different topic. The reality is, whatever they show you on YouTube, or whatever book tells you in 5 days you can have this or that. Life's a little more, like this than this, right? And if we're good with this, and we make this the joy and the richness and the fruit, of our harvest, of our participation, this becomes a beautiful life. As opposed to people who go, I've worked with thousands of people over the course of my 30-year career. Somehow I'm not a success because I didn't get from A to B in a minute. And not realizing what a depth of person and character they've developed through all the winding turns and missteps and mistakes and wrong doors. And you've all had that kind of life. And as a result, there's so much more consciousness and kindness and compassion and patience that can be available to you and for other people. When you just embrace that as part of the human journey, your own personal hero's journey. So I'm going to say that again. Those of us who are resilient give positive meaning to every experience we've been through and are going through. So it's not the issue. It's never what the circumstances are. This is how we have joy regardless of circumstances. It's not about out here. It's about how I am in relationship to what's out here. Because we're always in relationship, but how I'm in relationship, guess what? That's your life. That's your life. Because we live in stories, we live in language. We live in the meaning we put on things. So one of my stories that I love to tell is the one about the two boys who were hired to muck out stalls. And the farmer sends them down to, okay, I'm going to come down and see you guys in about a half hour, but the shovels are on the outside of the barn door. I want you to clean out the stalls. I'll be down in a half hour to see what you're doing. So half hour, the farmer goes down, and the first kid's standing on the barn. You know how they do that thing, right? Leaning against the barn. This is not very stable. With one of the straws in his mouth, hanging out. The farmer goes, what are you doing? And the kid goes, it stinks in there. There's a lot of crap in there. It stinks. The farmer says, get home. I hired you to muck out the stalls. And kid goes, fine. He goes home, plays his video games. And he goes into the barn, and he hears a happy song. The other kid's singing a song, and he hears, and the kid's singing, and the farmer finds the kid, and he goes, what's up with you? And the young man says, wow, with all this crap in here, there's got to be a pony in here someplace. And, sometimes life dumps on us. And maybe the process of digging ourselves out is the process of transformation we're being asked to participate in. I had a client, she came to me shattered. Her husband, she just found out about an infidelity with her husband. Shattered. And back to what you were saying, I wasn't going to include this in part of the story, but since you brought it in, she looked at me, she says, have you ever had your heart shattered? And I had. And I was able to look at her and let her feel that that was true and let her know she was going to be okay. Because I'm okay. And that was enough for her to get the confidence that she could meet her circumstances because she wanted to go dig out the stall. Of course, her mind told her she's crazy. If you talked to her any friends, they would have talked her out of it. I mean, like, you don't want to go there. You got to go here. What's true for her, they had a child that they both adored. She loved her husband. He loved her. There was just this thing that happened. And so they both went in the stall and they dug out. And they're the couple now that other couples want to know that they want to have what they have. They changed themselves and their marriage because they dug themselves out of that pile. They're willing to forgive, they're willing to be honest, they're willing to change how they showed up for each other and themselves. Stinky, a lot of tears, a lot of falling down, a lot of standing back up again, a lot of running away, a lot of coming back. Who cares? You do the work if you want the blessings. You know, nobody did. Who told you? Did you get before you came down here? Life on planet Earth is a planet of comfort zone and vacation. No hardships at all. Anybody got that travel brochure before you got here? No, it's not that planet, is it? It's a working planet. We do our work. You know, and Gibran said, "Work is love made manifest." So it's not such a bad thing. So which kid would you want to hire? The one who was with the straw in his mouth or the kid yucking out the stall? Which one do you want to be? I mean, even in the metaphor of him, you know, just think of the strength in his body. I mean, what if that is preparing him for a different job, and doing that with such vigor and enthusiasm is going to get him hired? And, you know, it becomes a stepping stone, like you said, in a whole other direction because he fully participated. Full out participation. Just out of curiosity, is anybody other than me hot? We're all hot? Okay, good. Just so it's like we're all in this sauna together. So remember, the card I gave you is because we have this habit of thinking, and we think these thoughts, like I wonder why me, who's to blame, and then because the mind is like a search engine, it'll pull up stories to support whatever the question we ask it, right? I mean, you ask the Google anything and the Google will tell you. So you want to be careful what you ask your search engine brain. So that's why when you turn the card over, so if you find yourself in a crunchy, kind of like grumpy pile of pity, you know, it's like, oh, I must be asking one of those victim questions. What's going on in there? You want to look at how you're talking to yourself. How are you putting meaning on your circumstances? And it's like, oh, I'm doing that again. It just becomes a habit. It's like the sound happened. It's like, oh. And it's like, okay, then you calm down because this reactivity happens. Just calm down, turn the card over, and ask a better question. And years ago, the first time I was hired to be a consultant in a corporation, AT&T hired me to do 3 days worth of training with their people. And I had been working personal growth trainings for a while, and so I knew it was easy to translate, but I'd never done corporate. You always have to have a first time. And I was young, and they asked me, and I said, sure, I can do that. I mean, I knew I could, but I hadn't yet, so I had all the heebie-jeebies, lack of confidence. And one morning I had set aside to work on my project, and I'm in bed, and my mind is going, what if they hate you? What if they throw tomatoes at you? What if they won't pay you? What if you embarrass yourself? I mean, all that stuff, and I could not get out of bed. And then I started to laugh because I teach positive focus, which is part of what was going to be the curriculum for the program. And so I said, well, challenge yourself to ask different questions, Leslie. So I started to say, what if they love you? What if they talk about you to other divisions? What if, and I started playing the what if game. And next thing I noticed, I was at the sink brushing my teeth. I hadn't even been aware that I had gotten out of bed to participate in starting my day because it had been really intense in there for a while. So that to me is such a clear example of how we talk to ourselves impact our participation. So pay attention to what you're attending to, and if it's not working for you, change the channel, right? So you have a little cheat sheet. And I suggest you play with the fact that life is really for you. My spiritual teacher loves to end when he speaks, he ends with these words, Baruch Bashan, which means the blessings already are. I think it's from Aramaic. And the first time I heard that, it's like, what are you talking about? The blessings already are. I mean, like, was one of those koans for me, and I sat with it for a long time. And I really made myself tune into the blessing of those two words. I wanted to know what that meant. And I do now. In every moment, the blessings are present. We have to choose to see where they are. They may not be showing up in the ways we had written down that morning. But has anybody been a little kid? You can all raise your hand now. I asked you another easy question. But has anybody gone on an Easter egg hunt when you were little? Was it ever one of those cold, nasty Easter Sunday mornings? And so you put your little coat on and all your Easter best get all covered up, because why? Why was it worth going out? Find the chocolate. And you went out because you were certain that if you looked, you would find the blessings. You're not going to find the eggs in the house. You have to look for them. And you have to have a sensitivity of perception, and you have to have a start to fine-tune your awareness and a willingness to see what's there for you. Not what the mind is looking for, but what is being given to you. Does anybody go morel hunting? Those mushrooms? You did? Yeah, I cannot. The first time I only went once. I couldn't see them.
You have to be by a dead elm.
You got to be by a dead elm. You got to be with somebody who was an Indian in another lifetime.
Boy Scouts.
We brought in like 35 of them. I only saw 2 of them. You know, it's that same thing. It's like, where are they? But if you want them, they're there. So I'm wanting, and that's way more fun to live in looking for the blessings than being grumpy. Life is the way it is. At least I think so. And if you want to have fun with life, that's a great way to do it. So we become who we are because of the resilience of the human spirit. And I want to do a little fun thing right now. But first I want to remind you of this story of this man I had been working with. His name was Robert, and his wife had cancer, and she was very ill, and he came home from work, and she was laying on the couch, resting. And he was happy to see her, but I guess as a habit of their long-term marriage, he started to complain, download his day, this happened, and that happened, and this didn't happen. And she looked up at him, and she said, you know what, Robert? Problems exist in the world of the living. Right? I mean, that just gave me the chills then, and almost every time I tell that story, it's so powerful. We complain about that we have problems, but the gift of the problems is that we're alive to participate in finding the blessing, the possibility, what's here for me. What if this is a gift? So what I want you to do, just to make it personal, is turn to somebody, and why don't you just pair up right now, and then I'll tell you, it's not going to be that personal. You promise all to be confidential. If someone tells you something, I want you to forget about it right away. If you agree to that, raise your hand. What anybody says to you is none of your business. What you say to them is none of your business. It's just an exercise in self-awareness, okay? So if you don't have somebody, raise your hand. So come work with each other. You guys work with each other. So this is how it'll go. The person with the shortest hair will speak first. I used to go decide who's going to be person A, and it took so long, so I'm just deciding for you. So, person with the shortest hair goes first, and it's going to go, what is, I'll give you an example. My mom has a cognitive impairment. That's the facts. How I see that is a problem. Only 2 sentences max, 1 is fine. It's not really about telling a story to the other person. I see it as a problem is she's amazingly healthy and she's going to outlast her mind and have a lot of fear about that. Now look at it and how is it a blessing? It has brought me to an awareness of how precious she is, and I go out of my way to connect with her heart to heart because connecting up here doesn't matter anymore. And it's given me this place of finding a sweetness between us that I am celebrating. Do you see that? Same situation. One is the part of my mind, and I have that part that wants to make it a problem. And then the other part is that man part of me that sees it as a blessing. So I want to give you that same gift. Pick one thing. That's it. It's short. No storytelling. Okay? It's not about you telling the other person about you. It's about you becoming more aware inside yourself of the choice we have in every moment with every situation. Okay? So go ahead. I'm going to give you about 2 minutes. When one person's done, then go ahead and switch. Okay?
I really started to fall for him. And I thought, wow, this could be it. Suddenly just disappeared. And he wasn't ready for it. And my heart just, so I'm still trying to see what is the good in all of this. When I actually was it's still hard to accept sometimes because I don't know. And then I think, I can't take this in today's world because whatever I have on this.
Raise your hand if you need more time. Okay, just 1 more minute. So go ahead and bring that to a close. This is a nice way to get you to stop talking. So, how was that? Did anybody have any ahas or insights you'd like to share with us? Nobody turned adversaries to blessings? Yes?
It was a little bit different because I know this person outside of here, so I actually shared how it felt kind of awkward in this moment to kind of go deep and share. And at the same time, I felt that this was a way for me to more connect to myself and be just aware of the awkwardness and be able to share that I'm feeling awkward here. So allowing me to break through my own awkwardness in this moment.
I love that.
Positive feedback.
Yeah.
Wow, so that was beautiful. So the challenge or the problem was, oh, well, this is awkward, and the blessing was, oh, I get to be vulnerable by being honest about my awkwardness.
Yes.
That's, and then the blessing in that, if you move that into the future, what did you learn from that?
I learned the feeling of the awkwardness, and also this feeling of knowing, it's just, like, I don't know, I don't know the best way to say it, but the alternative feeling of saying, just push through it. And I felt that feeling within me, and the stronger feeling to go through it. So it's like I'm kind of taking in that, remembering that feeling, because that's stronger than my thoughts and my words.
Beautiful. So it's like courage comes of the heart. That's what it means, of the heart. So it sounds like that was more important for you to move through the resistance and the mind story and have a expanded experience.
Yeah, and my mind is kind of like where you're at, where it's like, I know those things are going to happen. I'm going to feel those feelings, but I'm friends with myself to say, just keep going, you know? And even when those times that I don't keep going, I'm like, it's okay. You're just not there yet. You're all right. You're just not there yet to push through that barrier, but you're doing good. And
Nice.
so that felt really good, just to kind of push through a little small barrier.
Beautiful, beautiful. That's such a great teaching right there for all of us, is that baby steps, the encouragement, the not shaming or shooting on ourselves. Lovely. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Beautiful. Anybody else? Very nice. Yes?
It seems really helpful just to say it out loud. It's one thing to have, like, change the language in your own mind, but it's easy to revert back to the victim that way because it sort of waffles back and forth. But to actually say it out loud to somebody else gives it more strength and makes it more
So I'm going to say what you said so that the audience who's being taped can hear you. So for you, it was helpful saying it out loud, because not speaking it out loud, it kind of just keeps repeating itself over and over. So the question I have for you is, what is it? Is it the victim part?
Yes, yeah.
So you got to hear.
Changing from the victim to the victor, actually saying out loud helps it to be more tangible.
Oh, great. So saying it out loud made it more real, more tangible, and you landed in the blessing of the victorious.
Yes.
Beautiful. So you could say it to yourself in the mirror. We do whatever works, right? And you just learn something that works for you. Great. Thank you.
Well, my partner's response to what I said made me really stop and think, when I even realized it's not even my problem I'm talking about. It's the worst possible outcome at the end of that problem is what I'm thinking is already real. But she's like, it's not. And I didn't even realize that's what I was doing with it.
That's what I was doing too, right? Afraid that she's going to, and right now it's fine. So
The
it's
actual moment isn't necessarily
beautiful.
that bad. It's where I'm assuming it will go.
Beautiful. Raise your hand if you recognize yourself in that pattern. That's what fear is. It's fantasizing expectations appearing real. Throwing our thoughts into the future, making some horrible thing up, and then buying into it, and then that's our fear. When the reality was, when you were speaking it, you were able to see that it wasn't even in the room at the moment. You were just making it up. Great. And then turning that into a blessing or to being victorious, what was that like for you? Or was just the awareness that that wasn't happening your blessing?
Well, I guess what I was saying was, when something's really serious, I'm not just upset about traffic or something, how do you see the blessing, especially when you're in it? But then it's like, no, what I'm thinking, and I know without going into detail, it's not that helpful, but I'm going 20 steps ahead, and that every step is the worst possible outcome. It's like, I'm not there yet. I don't know if I'll ever be at that bad point I'm imagining. So the problem right now is just, if I focus on what's really happening at this moment, it's just making me more grateful for what I do have, and how my normal problems really aren't that big a deal. So it's putting life in perspective, I guess.
Beautiful. So that was your blessing, is bringing yourself present and being aware of what's here and now. That's a huge blessing. So when you know, see, everybody's different. We all have our own ways of making ourselves nuts. So it's good to see, and we have all our own ways of changing, finding the Easter eggs. And you have to find out what works for you. That's called self-awareness. So I just give generic tools, and then, I like you to make them personal by giving an exercise. So you can start to see, well, this is something that seems to get me some traction. Like that man saying, speaking it aloud was very helpful. So when you notice yourself going ahead, just calling yourself present, and then I heard you say, and looking at things through the eyes of gratitude. That'll bring you your blessings. That's your doorway to blessings. I'm sure we can all use that too, but that wouldn't work for you. One more. Anybody else have one?
So a problem is like seeing a new health development as a sign of the aging process, perhaps. And then the blessing is being able to then realize, well, this is an opportunity to really focus more on what's important with your health and how you can make the right decisions and value what you have while you have it.
Beautiful. Beautiful. It's the same thing about coming here, but now coming back with a shift of perspective, again with gratitude. And that could even start to change how you're in relationship with the people in your life. We stop taking people for granted when we even just imagine that, even if it's not true. It's like, but what if it was true? Would I be treating myself this way? Would I be treating that person this way? It's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. So interpreting that life is for you and that you can turn anything into a blessing will help you access your resilience. And if you see life as any other way than that, you're doing yourself a disservice, that's okay. Just forgive yourself and then make another choice. Because, we are habituated to look at the worst case. Does anybody know what that's about? It's how the brain is structured for survival. It looks on the horizon for anything that's out of order because it needs to live another day. So it's not going to get lost in the tulips and how nice the sun is. And oh my God, I saw the most amazing rainbow on Saturday. And next thing I know, something jumps out of the bushes and it's dead. It has to be alert for bad things might be happening. That's how we made it on the savannah with a pointy stick. So we just move into forgiveness. It's like that's just part of our humanity. And then we go, I'm doing that again. So we want to bring our awareness to our survival selves. So now we've lifted up into the human by watching and noticing the lower consciousness and going, well, I'm not going to let that part drive my car. I'm not going to let my fear, my awkwardness be more important than my yearning to connect. And we just move through it and come present. And it's just practice, right? It's called loving yourself. So I just want to review what we went over, and then we're going to open it up to questions. So changes, I forgot my blessing seeker glasses. That's okay. Change is inevitable. We have the power to change the meaning of anything. This is what's in the handout on your chairs, so you can remember what we talked about. Resilient people shared the ability to give positive meaning out of the experience of our lives. Wonder question, what if life is for you? Here to serve you in your ongoing learning, growth, and evolution, lifting you up into an awareness of who you truly are. Like the king, lifting you into your majesty. The blessings already are. We become who we are through the resilience of the human spirit because of adversity. So adversity truly is a blessing when we engage with it correctly. Correctly as in it works for us. Life happens, now what? Acceptance is the master power tool. And whatever you thought was upsetting you, it probably wasn't. So change the story. Get yourself a set of blessing-seeking glasses and go out and have yourself a joyous life. Thank you.
Leslie.
You're welcome.
We have time for questions. And although I did
didn't come around during all the many questions that were coming on during the talk, I would like to record the questions that are going to be asked now. I don't know what's up with our sound system this evening. It's not functioning.
It's getting ready for Halloween. The spooks are here. Woo!
After all the money that's been invested in it, sure. If you have a question, and I hope you do, please raise your hand. I'll bring you the microphone. Or have you already asked all the questions?
Yes. Yes, yes. Oh.
I find that for me, one of my biggest challenges to being calm and taking things sort of in stride and as a lesson is, they always say, change what you can and accept what you can't. For me, it's that dividing line that is so hard to see. Let's say there's a new policy at work I hate. Well, is that something I can't accept? Or if I talk to the right people and I get enough people involved and I convince them and I research other workplaces that have done this, I could make it change. So I drive myself crazy with, well, maybe I could do something. And I do that with everything. So how do you know when to let it go? Because I can never figure that out.
Well, I think that's a really great question, and the rest of that is, and the wisdom to know the difference. So where does wisdom come from? Your gut. So there's that spiritual wisdom, that creative intelligence. For me, I just have to share you with how I do it, and you'll find out what works for you. I ask, is this really my level of concern? So it's really easy to get distracted and pulled into the disturbances of life. So is this my level of concern? What am I willing to do? What outcome am I going for, and what am I willing to do to get there? Once I lay that out, I might not want to do any of it. It may just be way too much work, and it's clear I'm not going there. So now I move into just accepting what is there. So sometimes I just play with leaning into it. Is it just my mind getting all riled up because it loves to get riled up? An example is when my sister and I started taking over from my mom's care, I was eager to do all these things for her. My mom kept telling me to back off, and then I was just getting mad at her because I was wanting to love her through my actions, and the reality was I was going too fast, and I was really not respecting her, giving her the dignity of her choosing. And so I was calling out the worst of her, and we were ending up having arguments. So that was big off course for me. I'm off course, right? I'm learning here. It's a new game for me. And one of my mentors said to pay attention to what's allowed. That's the divinity's will. So my whole intention in my life is to live in participatory surrender. So I don't know what's mine to change. So I'll show up and then I'll wait and see. And am I called forward into further action or not? Does that make sense? So I only go one step at a time towards an intention of creating something better, but that may not be serving the greatest good. My agenda may not be serving the all. Is that helpful at all? So it's about slowing things down and just taking one next step and paying attention to what's available now. And that helps me live from a more calm and present place where I can listen to that inner guidance. Is that helpful? Great question.
They don't like microphones.
They don't like you either, so it's okay.
So in my mind, it's like there's all these people talking, and I want to make a change, and then all of a sudden it's like, no, you don't want to make a change because you get, you have 15 years at this company, and you have all this vacation time. Why would you want to make that change? Then there's the other part of me go for it. So I constantly am going back and forth. I want to make a change. I don't want to be there anymore. I'm not happy working in a basement 10 hours a day, not seeing sunlight. I'm a very creative, and I love to talk to people, and being in a basement all day is making me miserable. there's one point where I want to take that chance, and I'm constantly, nope, you got to stay here. Yep. You know what I'm trying to say.
I don't. What's
I
the
don't know
question?
how to
I
take
understand what you're
chance.
saying, but I don't
know.
understand what I don't hear a question.
Know. It's like all these, it's like I want to take a chance, but yet I don't. I do, I don't. And it's like, oh, if you take that chance, you might not succeed. It's kind of like,
So the question,
is,
so how can I help you?
yeah.
How do we get out of this?
Yeah, how do I get out of it? Yeah, thank you. I couldn't.
How do you get out of the,
the
through
cycle,
action?
This cycle of
So
just-
that's a whole process of getting really clear, what do I really want, and moving forward towards that. Because if we stay in the head, our mind always loves to argue with itself, and then it kind of thinks like it's doing something. And you're not doing anything. You're not, me not either. I mean, I know what you're talking about, so.
Oh,
you
you
know.
should be blessed because,
Right.
all this vacation time.
So if you really want to get out, you figure out, well, what might that look like, and you begin to move towards that. And you commit to the action and discovering what it's going to take to get your hero's journey to move through the dark forest and into the light again. But it's a journey of discovery and movement, not staying in our head, because staying in our head it just promotes ongoing disturbance and argument. I mean, notice did your mind love to argue with itself?
Yes.
Good, bad, right, wrong, shouldn't, jump higher. No, that was too high. And nothing changes out here. All we do is listen to the mental chatter. It's about getting engaged with some sort of plan. You may not create that plan. But if you start to move forward towards something, again, what will be revealed that will serve you will show up, but you have to show up in order to meet it. Remind me not to wear this topic. Okay, you have to engage, which means you have to be willing to get out of the comfort zone. Towards what? So the what has to be big enough for you to be willing to go for it, like we talked about here. Bertie was willing to learn, invest everything he invested in, even if he didn't want to, and all his fears about it, because he had a greater purpose that served to bring his willingness, so he would do the actions. So it happens through action. Does that help?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you, thank you. So this is the deal. I love helping people, and if you're the kind of person who didn't want to ask a question out loud in person in front of everybody on television, that's fine. You can write to me or call me, and I'll do what I can to help you. All right, so if that makes it easier for you, don't have to leave with the unanswered questions. I'm still on the planet. My email address is on the bottom there, and I would love to be useful to you. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Leslie. Oh, look, I've got voice. I can be heard.
It's not squeaking.
As Leslie started to mention at the beginning of the talk, she is doing a workshop here. And normally our workshops follow the lecture. Like normally we would have Leslie here on Saturday for the workshop. But because of some irregularity in our scheduling, and the auditorium not being available this weekend, we scheduled Leslie for a workshop on Saturday, November 2nd. So it's a few weeks away, and you've got plenty of time to make that plan. And it gives you a lot of time, so you can just go home and register for it tonight. And if you don't
bring your
tonight,
friends.
Bring your friends. The more the merrier. So the workshop is November 2nd from 1 to 4 p.m. And the workshop is on cultivating inner resilience. So it is an interactive workshop where you're actually going to be practicing a lot of these ideas. And I think that we have had similar workshops before here, led by Leslie, and people who participate find them very, very helpful. So if you are interested in participating in that, please do register for it and come along. Thursday next week, we will have Bhante Sujata, who is a Theravada Buddhist monk. He, again, has spoken here on a number of occasions. And next week, he will be speaking on a Buddhist approach to loving yourself as you are, which is very much in line with what we've been speaking about this evening. Bhante Sujata is from Sri Lanka, but has lived in America for quite a long time, and he's a very joyful, happy man and very eager to share his insights and wisdom. And so if you are free Thursday next week, please come to hear him. He is also doing a weekend meditation retreat that starts Friday next week and goes through Sunday. We don't have any rooms available left, so that it is a residential retreat. But if anyone is interested in participating in that retreat, we can still accept commuters. That is, people who just come for the evening and then the day, but you go back home to sleep because all the rooms are taken at this stage. And one more event that's coming up on Friday, October 25th, which isn't very far away, is the sound healing with Tibetan and crystal bowls with Yolanda Lozano, and she does these programs for us on somewhat seasonal basis, and they're very enjoyable, very relaxing and healing. And that is Friday, October 25th. If you can make that, please do. And there are many other programs, as I said, listed in our program catalog or our website. Thank you all for coming this evening. Please stay and have some refreshments. There's tea and cookies. And of course, continue the conversation with Leslie. Get a book. We've got books available. You can get it signed. Thank you all.